Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Nurture and Support. I am Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter.
And hi everybody, I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And welcome to another week of awesome recommendations. At least we hope they're awesome. I think mine's awesome. Do you think yours is awesome, Kelly?
I know mine is awesome.
Okay.
I'm confident that mine is awesome.
All right. So without further ado, I'll jump into mine. This is a little bit of a different departure for me. Usually the informative stuff Kelly likes to throw out with his documentaries, but I have a cool podcast for you that I just started listening to, and it's called The History Chicks. And it is two ladies, Beckett and Susan, who they've been going for like 5 years doing this podcast. They're on, let me see, they're up to episode 74, and then they have a bunch of like little mini casts going on too. What they cover is kind of like what the title kind of sounds. It talks about who they are, but it also talks about what they cover. They pick interesting women from history, and that's what their episodes are about. So they do all of this research. They put out about 2 episodes a month, and they run, they're pretty long. They run about an hour, some of them a little bit more, but they're really interesting, that the women that they pick out. And they've covered everybody from Anne Boleyn to Catherine the Great. They even throw in a few fictional characters. I think they take requests from people. And I think Cinderella won one of them. I haven't listened to that one yet. But they've covered Mary Shelley. Here's one of them, Red Riding Hood. They covered her. So, but what's kind of timely is a few episodes back, they covered the Schuyler Sisters. And of course, any of you who are Hamilton fans recognize that name. So Angelica and Eliza Schuyler are the ones in particular they talk about. They talk about a little bit about Peggy. But what's cool about that episode is they actually got some help with that one by a lady who was writing a biography on Angelica and Eliza. And her name is Amanda Vale. And we're not sure when the book is going to be out. She's really just kind of started it, but they get her in to talk about all of this background history about these women and the cool stuff that she's been digging up and finding. And it's really very interesting. And if you're into Hamilton and you want to know a little more about what's going on behind the scenes of that relationship, because if you've listened to the Hamilton soundtrack, I don't know, have you Kelly? Have you seen it? I don't think you've seen Hamilton.
I have not seen Hamilton.
Because you're not super rich to have been lucky enough to.
But I have listened to the Hamilton soundtrack, yes, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to point out from a nurture and support standpoint. We are, so if you're listening, you're super smart because you're listening to an awesome podcast. If you're not listening, I don't know how this will work, but if you're not listening, Nurture and Support was talking about Hamilton before Hamilton was cool.
Yes.
So
because we're cool.
Because we're like so cutting edge.
We are. We're hipsters, don't you know?
We imported a hipster for that particular episode.
We did.
Who covered it for us?
We did. Go back. We'll link to that episode in the blog post, because Kelly's lovely daughter came in and talked to us about that, and it was great. So Hamilton's pretty awesome. Pretty much almost everybody who has any even vague interest in, a lot of people who don't have a vague interest in musicals have listened to the soundtrack because it's easily out there to be listened to. It's on Spotify. If you haven't listened to it, it's a really great, entertaining listen. You learn a little bit of history told in an entertaining way. And that's exactly what this podcast does. Takes a little bit of a different spin on history by focusing on some great women who have been around during history and told history from their perspective, telling you about their lives, and not so much about the lives of the men in their lives, but about their particular life and how they influenced history, which we don't always Well, I'm old. Let me put it that way. I know I sometimes sound like I'm a 12-year-old because I just have a voice like that, but I'm really old. And when I was in school, history was really dry and really boring, and that's why I really like this podcast. And I have a surprise social media this week too is of a similar bent, which is very entertaining. Sorry, cats went a little crazy there. But taking history and making it something that's entertaining and approachable by people who maybe aren't all that interested in history, and I'll raise my hand and claim that I'm guilty of that. Particularly American history has never been something that has particularly sparked an interest in me. So, which is why it's pretty amazing that this episode was really very good. And just a disclaimer, if this is the first episode you're going to go listen to, they do tell you the audio quality in this particular episode, they were having some Skype issues, something that we know nothing about here at Nurture and Support. Our audio quality is always pristine.
Those idiots on Squat Cobbler, however, have severe audio issues, at least on recent episodes.
It happens to us all. So that's not their best audio quality, but it is a very cool, very interesting podcast for two women who, if you were like me, you had never heard of before Hamilton came out. You didn't know anything about them. And they got so many requests for knowing more about these women that's why they did this episode. And it's really very entertaining, but they cover everybody. Their first episode was Marie Antoinette. Then they covered Laura Ingalls Wilder. And then they covered Cinderella. So it's really very cool. And they're not historians. That's not their claim to fame. This is just something that they have a deep interest in, and they go and they do their own research. And when appropriate, they try to pull in people who might be better experts in that field, such as this particular Schuyler Sisters episode. And inform you a little bit. And it's very entertaining, and it's cool, and I like it. And they've done 5 years. They're in their 5th year. So it's really very cool. It's the History Chicks. You can catch them on any podcast catcher out there, iTunes, Stitcher, everything. You can listen to the episodes on their website, which is thehistorychicks.com. And check them out, because I think they've got some cool stuff to say in a very entertaining way. And give you a little bit of a learning there for some things you may not have exactly been told from your history books, which I really like about kind of the rising popularity of history these days, is that we're starting to get a different story than at least the stuff I was taught in history. I hope young people today are getting maybe a broader view of history being told from different perspectives, but I don't know that they are. So my history learning was very dry and very boring. And
well, they do have They Might Be Giants, who on occasion will give us educational material on like James Polk, which is helpful. Some state history, which is always handy. Mm-hmm. But there's I guess They Might Be Giants is the schoolhouse rock of this generation.
Yes, yeah. And they're awesome too. And we have episodes on They Might Be Giants as well. If you've missed those, go back and catch them.
Absolutely.
So anyway, The History Chicks is a very cool podcast with a lot of episodes if you're looking for a podcast to check up on. They run new ones twice a month, and they run about an hour, sometimes a little bit more, but they're well worth the listen. And they, for what it's worth, if you're going, oh my gosh, I can't listen to an hour of a podcast, that's forever long. It doesn't feel like an hour. They tell it in such an engaging fashion that they don't seem like they're an hour, even the ones that are longer than an hour. So it's highly cool, I would say. So go check them out. And that's The History Chicks at thehistorychicks.com.
Excellent. That sounds crazy fun. And I like hour-long podcasts because that's like the perfect lawn mowing length. You can kind of pop that bad boy in and catch up on something while you mow the lawn, and it's good deal. So,
it is.
So what is your preferred podcast length? Or does it just depend on the content?
It depends on the content. I've listened to, I've been a Nerdist listener for a long time, and some of the Nerdist ones can go on 2 hours. As long as they're as they're doing their job. I don't care how long they are. I'll listen to them however long they are. I've been a long time Stuff You Should Know listener. Some of theirs they try to keep them shorter, but sometimes they run 45 minutes to an hour. I think between 30 and 45 minutes is good. When you're getting over an hour, it sometimes that's getting a little bit long. But if you're keeping people engaged the entire time doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, and there's always the pause button, so if you whatever, you can get back to it later. So yeah, I don't think there is a right length. It depends on what you got to say.
Right. It's all about the content that they're delivering. So
awesome. Well, I will jump into my recommendation, and actually my recommendation is a combination of a recommendation and umbrage. So I will give the recommendation first, and then I will wrap it up in a layer of umbrage.
Okay.
So my recommendation is that if you go to some of you may be familiar with a site called Amazon.com.
No.
So if you go to the site called Amazon.com, they have a video section. Mm-hmm. And even if you are not an Amazon Prime member, and we will come back to that later because that's tied to the umbrage piece, but for any of us, any person on the planet going to Amazon.com, the video section, can go in and watch. What they do is they put out a series of pilots of Amazon original content they're considering making. And you can watch it, and then you can actually vote on the content. So there's a combination of you vote one by viewing it, but then you can also provide some input in terms of if you liked it or not from that perspective. And there are, I believe, 3 that are active right now in this pilot section. And my recommendation is one of the 3, and it is The Tick. Which was shouted out from the room. I had had an opportunity to go to Comic-Con up in Chicago, Wizard World here recently. Had a chance to connect a little bit with our good friend Jeans, who was there rocking the cosplay, and there was a session for The Tick, and I was like, well, I gotta go see this, particularly because Ben England, creator of The Tick, was gonna be there. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure they were doing a new series, and so those of you familiar with The Tick know how awesome it is. For those of you who are not familiar, it's awesome. You need to check it out. This is actually the 3rd iteration. There was a cartoon version of The Tick, which is very faithful to the comic book. And this is helpful because a lot of the Tick villains lend themselves to needing to be created in a comic fashion. So like there's one with a chair head and these types of things. So they're very, very, very strange. But it's a wonderful cartoon and super enjoyable and funny. And Tick's, one of Tick's battle cries is Spoon, as Mel talked about, and you get a lot of Spoon in there. Then they created a live version copy of The Tick, or a new series for The Tick. Mm-hmm. Sadly, it only ran 1 season. Patrick Warburton, I believe I got the last name right, Pudgy from Seinfeld, you might know him from there. Big, deep voice guy, played The Tick. He was actually an excellent choice to play it. And it was really well done. It was probably closer to almost if you think about the early Batman TV series that was very farcical and funny. The Tick itself is farcical and funny, but it was very light-spirited. And then inexplicably, they had taken a few of the other superheroes and kind of twisted them around a little bit and changed the names, and they were kind of like them, but they weren't exactly. But it was still incredibly enjoyable. It was a great series, and very disappointed that it only ran a single season from there. But they've now created a 3rd version, and Ben England is deeply involved with it. And when I was at Comic-Con, they were showing the pilot, and then were available for Q&A, and they had a couple of the actors come up after the airing. And if you're a Tick fan, this is just about picture perfect in terms of capturing the Tick. I'm not really criticizing any of the earlier versions because I really enjoyed them as well, but I think that this is the best one so far. Because
better than the cartoon?
Better than the cartoon.
Oh, I don't know.
Need to watch the pilot.
I haven't watched it. I know you told me it was great. Other people on Twitter I've seen have thought it was great, and it's on my list of things to do, but I cringe a little at the live action. I do.
So did I, because and that was the live action version. That was the challenge, is that the nature of this universe is how do you actually play out some of these things through there? Now, they haven't gotten into some of the characters that would be fairly challenging to pull off, so that'll be interesting to see what they do. But this is much truer to the comic.
Okay.
And it's kind of it's gritty, but it's also if you've seen the Tick, you know the Tick is this kind of completely unself-aware goofball, do right, lots of interesting, confusing catchphrases, and the actor who portrays him nails it, and the special effects and the costuming and whatever is pretty much point on. I've always kind of, particularly with the cartoon, my biggest quibble with the cartoon was, I get Arthur was, kind of a goof, Tick's sidekick, dresses like a moth, kind of pudgy, but his costume was always, I was never completely comfortable with it. And they stay fairly true to the nature of the Arthur costume, but they kind of amp it up a little bit that it was actually a uniform, an indestructible uniform. I don't know why they had the feathers on the head, the mothy antenna feathers on the head, to be an indestructible outfit, but it's accurate, Tick is accurate, and it's amazing. What I have to give a call out for, and you get in the current live action version, the one I'm recommending, you get Arthur's backstory, which is kind of very rich and kind of dark. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but Arthur ends up having some trauma early in his life due to an early run-in with the Terror, who is one of the main Tick villains. And worth the price of admission alone is the Terror. So he's played by Jackie Haley. So Jackie played Rorschach in
Watchmen.
Yes, in Watchmen. And he was originally told by Ben England, yeah, come do it, you're going to play the Terror. No prosthetics. Oh, great, because he was getting tired of doing prosthetics. Well, it didn't work out that way. There's some prosthetics involved for the Terror. Yeah. The Terror is incredibly, awesomely, hilariously evil in the best of all possible ways. He travels around in a large letter T-shaped spaceship for the Terror, which you get a lot of good action for. He wipes out a superhero group early on, pre-Tick, in the most unpleasant way possible, which I will not spoil either, but it's pretty awesome. And his early interactions with Arthur are amazing. So the guy that plays Arthur is awesome. Jackie as a Terror is amazing. The guy that plays the Tick is great. And it is, a lot like some of the Marvel stuff that seems to hit the right notes from the comic. This is very much a parallel to that in terms of it really getting it right. And with Ben England involved from the inception, and he seems like such a remarkable guy and a very interesting guy, very humble, very earnest in wanting people to enjoy this, interested in what they thought. Just a little flighty, probably would be a fair way to describe him, but super fun to have on the panel. And then the gentleman that plays Arthur, I'm sorry I don't have his name on top of my head, but he was there, and he's a wonderful panel participant as well. So go to Amazon, go to videos, find our pilots, watch the Tick, tell everybody you love it so we get more of these, because we absolutely need more of these. So that's a recommendation. Now a brief umbrage before we leave the recommendation, which is I'm at Wizard World. I have just taken in a truly enjoyable show, and I'm doing what I need to do on this, which is to tell the world to say you need to go watch the Tick. Selflessly, just trying to support something that I think is great. And then someone on Twitter chooses to weigh in at this point in time and get all snotty about, I
knew this was where it was going.
Yes. Oh, so now who's shilling for Amazon Prime? Given for those of you familiar with Nurture and Support, very long history of Mel being a Prime user, me not being one, me possibly suggesting Prime users were elitists, perhaps. Maybe I did that.
A little bit.
Maybe, and then eventually me becoming a Prime user and enjoying it very much. So thank you, Mel. But the good news is you do not need to be elitist or non-elitist Amazon Prime user. It's not necessary. It's publicly available through Amazon, so you can get in there. I do recommend you do get Amazon Prime per Mel's earlier recommendation. However, you don't need to watch the Tick pilot and vote on it. So my umbrage was I was not shilling for Amazon. I was shilling for the Tick. So.
Yes, but it should be noted, should the Tick, which I feel pretty certain it will go to series, as much love as I've seen on Twitter about it, you will need to be a Prime member to watch the rest of the season if it does get picked up. So keep that in mind, but don't let it keep you from voting for it, even if you're not a Prime member.
That is an unnecessarily accurate detail.
Yeah. Yes. So I never read the Tick comic, but I was a huge fan of the cartoon. I was in college. I was a freshman in college when the cartoon was running. And I don't remember what fast food chain had Tick toys in like their Happy Meals. I don't think it was McDonald's. It could have been Taco Bell back at the time. I don't remember. But some place I remember in college we had to go to specifically so that I could get a Tick toy, and I still have it.
Is it the actual Tick or?
It is it's one of those balancing toys. So yes, it is a figure of the Tick, and it's pretty big. I'll take a picture and put it on the blog post. But he's balancing on a shattered brick wall on his chin, and it's a pretty good toy for having come in like a Happy Meal type package. But I remember I didn't have my car that year, and I remember having to make my friend with a car drive me to wherever this place was that had Tick toys, because I had to get a Tick toy, and I still have it.
It's super fun. Any of them, the cartoon, the original live action series, or now this new one, you'll enjoy them. I do really think this new one is pretty special, so you need to check it out.
And hopefully the Midnight Bomber will show up at some time, because he was one of my favorites.
I loved about every element of it, and the superheroes that kind of collect at the diner are an interesting lot.
Yes, the Fleeter Mouse. He was my favorite. It's a good show. I love that cartoon so much. So that's why I've been a little leery of the live action. I just don't know how I feel about a real man in a big blue skin tight suit, and Arthur in his suit. But
yep.
I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna
watch it. You'll love it. I think as a big comic fan or a big cartoon fan as well. And I kind of went in because I did enjoy the original live action one, but it just wasn't. It wasn't. I liked the cartoon better. It was still very good, but I liked the cartoon better. This one, I'm going. They're about equal. And in some ways, I like this one. I think this could be my favorite.
Cool. I'm definitely gonna have to go watch it now. So I think that takes us into social media. And surprise, surprise, as I mentioned before, I have one this week. It's also history related. It is a Twitter account of a lady named Mackenzie Lee. And her Twitter account is at the Mackenzie Lee. And that's MackenziLee with a V in front of it, the Mackenzie Lee. And she's a bookseller, according to her Twitter bio. She is a bookseller, a history person, and an author. What she does that is so cool, history related, and how I first came about her was every Friday, I think it's about 1 p.m. Eastern is when she tries to start it. She does a hashtag story, and the hashtag is Bygone Badass Broads. And what she does is kind of like the hashtag says, she pulls some cool woman from history that you more than likely have never heard of. And she tells their story in Oh, I don't know. I haven't gone through and checked how many tweets, but it's probably around 10, probably less. But she tells their story in a hugely entertaining, slightly profane way, many of the times. And it's really cool. She finds some really cool people to talk about, from women pirates to, badass queens that have been wiped from most of our history books that we never hear about. So they're really cool. And I suggest you follow her for her Bygone Badass Broads hashtag, which is every Friday. You can also check out, if you just want to look at that hashtag and you want to look at all the people that she's covered, they're all on Storify. And Storify is, let me see, it's storify.com/the Mackenzie Lee, just like her Twitter bio. So easy to find, and you'll find all of the other ones that she's covered, and they're highly entertaining women in history when you're done listening to the History Chicks podcast.
Very cool. Excellent. That's a definite follow for me. So mine's less educational and more entertaining, but I still think a reasonable social media recommendation. And here, rather than a Twitter account, I'm recommending a YouTube channel, which we will do on occasion on our social media recommendations. Sometime we'll do them as a recommendation, but this is a social media recommendation. The YouTube channel is Hydraulic Press Channel. So Hydraulic Press Channel. Now, there are a number of hydraulic press channels out there. I feel that this is one of the strongest ones, but I'm very open in the comment sections if you feel that there is a superior hydraulic press channel to share your thoughts with us. But about 70 videos. Each one runs right around 4 minutes long. And as advertised, it's a hydraulic press where different things are subjected to the hydraulic press. And that might be duct tape, pizza, a cactus, ping pong. We won't mention that one. There's some other things. Australian stuff. They show an unboxing with a hydraulic press, but it's just a chance where you get to see something squish something in fine video format. So it's a hydraulic press channel. Good entertainment when you're looking to kill some time in 4-minute increments.
Because for some reason we find all that fascinating, just like the will it blend.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, and I don't get it, but it is. I like watching these.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Fascinating. I on the same vein, some people may have heard in the news that we had a train derailment in North Texas. No one was hurt, thankfully, but it's a little unusual to have train derailments around here. But we have a lot of Union Pacific trains that run around here. And anyway, there was a train derailment, but they were working on the tracks. And I was fascinated sitting in traffic one day by the big machinery that was pushing the railroad ties under the tracks to secure them. And I sat there, missed traffic, started moving again because I'm watching this big machine that there's a person in there operating it. And I'm like, how can they even tell what they're doing? And it's just, I don't know. It's oddly fascinating watching machines work. I don't know. It's weird.
Yep. It needs its own channel too.
It does. And I bet if I looked, I'd find it, because I kept trying to figure out, wow, that's a big machine. So anyway, and I have no interest in construction equipment. It was just oddly fascinating. So a hydraulic press, I want to watch duct tape get squished, because I bet it's harder than you think.
Yep, and it's fascinating to watch.
Yes. So I think that wraps up glorious episode 123 of Nurture and Support. We will, I don't know, are you going to be nice to Matt this week?
Go right ahead. I think this is very good for you to introduce Matt this week.
Okay. Shortly, our glorious friend Matt Shivers will tell you how you can find us everywhere on the internet. And Stitcher, Kelly's YouTube channel has it all on YouTube for your listening pleasure, if YouTube is the place you like to watch this when you're done watching hydraulic press videos. And iTunes, all the normal places. And we will be back the week after next. Next week, you will have another Squat Cobbler with Kelly and Mike.
And with some crappy audio. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP @gmail.com. Or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter.